It's Wednesday. Let's chat. Hi, I'm Kanan Chandran, publisher of stormasia.com, and this is our regular series of Wednesday web chats, the WED web chat. I think a lot of us have been spending time at home. It's become a bit of a love affair with our devices, I think, be it for education, employment, entertainment, or escapism. Some form of gaming takes place in that process as well, be it FIFA or Candy Crush. During this pandemic, I think a lot of us have maybe cottoned on a bit more to games and started spending a bit more time with them, trying to see how good we are and realizing maybe we're not that good. But I think what we need to do is try and sort of balance things out a bit. So this is also part of our Jobs 20XX work in progress series of discussions where we look at opportunities for new avenues of endeavor in different industries. Our partner in the series is OUE Limited, a diversified real estate owner, developer, and operator in Asia. And as part of this series, of course, please feel free to ask questions. And given the short period of time, please type your questions either in the Q&A box or in the chat box. So for today's session, we will have people involved in the esports environment. Esports is expected to surpass 1.5 billion in revenue by 2023, and viewership is on track to double from 335 million in 2017 to almost 646 million by 2023. And Singapore is hosting the inaugural Global Esports Games in December. And for that, we'll have 400 athletes from 80 countries who will be here for this flagship event of the Global Esports Federation. So will this up the game for esports here and in the region? Well, we've got two representatives from Global Esports Federation, GEF, in our panel. We've got Chong Geng, he's a venture capitalist and entrepreneur in the tech startup space. He's a co-founding board member of GEF, and he's also the president of the Singapore Esports Association. That's a national governing body for esports in Singapore, and is a member of the Singapore National Olympic Council. Chong is committed to championing growth and collaboration in the esports sector. And welcome, Chong. Good to have you here. We've also got Mark Che, who's the Director of Secretariat at GEF. You might remember Mark, he was Sportsman of the Year in 2002. He's a competitive swimmer. He has represented Singapore in the Olympic Games, Asian Games, and Commonwealth Games. He's a multiple gold medalist and record holder at the SEA Games. He's currently the national coach for the Paralympic team. Mark holds various positions on sporting councils and organizations. He's also a nominated Member of Parliament of Singapore. Welcome, Mark. Thank you for being on this panel.
Happy to be here.
And on the player side, we have Amran Ghani, who is an esports athlete. Amran plays FIFA Online and FIFA Series competitively. He has won 3 gold medals regionally for the FIFA Online and has won 2 EA Champions Cups in 2018. He played on the global stage in the FIFA 18 Global Series playoffs and is scheduled to represent Singapore in the E-Nations competition this August in Denmark. Welcome, Amran. Welcome, gentlemen. Just want to check very quickly with you. Have you all been playing more games on your computers during this period? Amran, I'm sure you have, but Mark, how about you?
Yeah, I definitely have. I think the world has seen some tremendous growth in esports participation as well as viewership during this period of time. So I'm not immune to that. I definitely have seen a lot more and played a lot more.
Okay. How about you, Chong?
Yes, definitely I've been playing a bit more, but not as much as I would like. I think one of the advantages and disadvantages of, or you could call it disadvantage of working from home is that you lose track of time doing work. And there is no excuse sometimes for not receiving a certain email, which you would have in normal times. Yeah.
You can't say you're out on the road or traveling, right?
Yeah, you can't.
You're homebound. But I thought you'd spend more time playing sports, esports, because it's there all the time. You don't have to go anywhere. It's very easily accessed.
I think it's also, but you are when you are looking at the screen for 8 hours a day already, the last thing you want to do is to continue looking at it.
Okay. Amran, I'm sure you've been at it since you got to practice for your tournament as well. So how much time do you spend in front of the screen?
Recently, I think I've been spending more time because of the upcoming competition. I can say like after work, I'm spending most of my time playing and training.
And what's your schedule like in the day, whether you're working from home or in the office?
I would say after work, maybe like 2 or 3 hours, I would just be training all the way, and then on weekends, I guess it's the
When
whole
you say
day.
all the way, how long is that?
It's probably like from evening. I'll start around 6:30, and then I'll play all the way until like 9.
Oh, okay, not 9
Yeah.
in the morning, right? 9
No,
at
no,
night.
no. 9.
Okay. Is that enough? Right? I thought you'd be spending a lot more time playing than that.
Weekends, I would spend more time, like the whole day from morning to night.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So the purpose of that, is it to build capability with the device, or is it to build up your concentration?
A bit of both, I guess, because if you play longer, you'll be more focused for a longer period of time. Because when you're in the competition, you're going to play for long hours, so you need to give your best at every game, 100%, and also to learn something new, something that can give you that edge when you're playing against the top players from around the world.
Okay, you've won a few competitions, right? So, why not focus on that and make that your career? How come you've opted to take on a full-time job as well?
I guess it has always been a hobby for me. Like I
Okay.
never thought that it would be a full-time career, and I think in Singapore it's a bit hard to have esports as your full-time career, to sustain. That's why I always had a balance between both studies and gaming, and by having that balance also, I think I got the approval of my parents, who allowed me to continue my gaming as long as I'm doing well in studies. So they wouldn't say anything if I were to spend more time gaming.
Okay. So Chong and Mark, I mean, looking at Amran's situation and his comments, is the local esports environment capable of supporting professionals who sort of dedicate their time fully to esports?
Well, at this point, not yet. I hope that as time goes by, it'll be more and more possible. And I would say that, actually, let me correct myself. There are already full-time professional teams in Singapore, but the amount of payoff is perhaps not as attractive to Singaporeans, because we have, this is the advantage and also challenge of Singapore. We actually have a lot of choices, and it's easier, for example, to secure a good paying or decently paying job in Singapore as compared to other countries. And as a result, it's not so attractive to stake it out to actually to go into esports in the full time. However, I think that as the industry continues to develop and grow, I trust that we'll be able to see times, or rather we'll be able to see quite soon, I hope, the ability for people to take esports as a full-time job.
So when you say, sorry, yeah, Mark, you wanted to...
Yeah, I would like to add to what Chong is saying, right? I think we like to see more professional esports players in the whole landscape locally, and I think Chong and his team at SGA are doing a great job in providing the ecosystem to be able to enable athletes, especially as Amran, to continue their careers. But I maybe I just add a different lens on this, with other, comparing with other sports, right? Actually, aside from the spec scholars and the professional soccer players, really no one is actually a professional athlete here in Singapore. You want to compare it to the global landscape, you read about ATP players, professional golfers, they're professional, they're earning money from sponsorships, from the tour, from winnings, but very few of them are actually, making ends meet. So I think in Singapore, we've really done a great job in providing athletes some sort of funding, some sort of opportunities that are professional teams here in Singapore. But I think let's have some perspective here. Really, anywhere in the world, including in any other industries, the top athletes, they're able to earn tons of money doing it. Everyone else, they're trying. So I think in Singapore we're doing a great job, but I think in the larger scheme of things, I think not everyone is going to be able to make a living doing this, but we're trying to make it better.
One would argue that in the field of like football and actual physical sports, there are a lot of factors that kind of inhibit the size of the country, the amount of competition you can generate within. But in something like esports, you can do it virtually, right? I mean, it's a much more even playing field. Wouldn't there be a greater chance of talent to shine and perhaps rise to the top through this this avenue rather than physical sports? Am I correct in assuming that?
I think it's that's a good question, and then I think although there's the physical element out there that's taken out from sports, but I think we see a lot more professional teams understanding that they need to train the physical vessel in order to have faster reflexes, greater mental stamina, greater endurance, and you can't escape that. And we see a lot of professional teams actually incorporating nutrition, physiology, strength conditioning into their programs for them to gain that added advantage. That being said, esports is also a sport that requires talent, right? I definitely would not be as great as Amran in FIFA, right? I may not have the different skill sets, they have different reflexes, and technology is very important, and I think that's something that plays into Singapore's advantage. But I think when it comes to this esports, it is an enabler. Technology is an enabler, and Singapore has an advantage. But still, you still need that talent in order to see success.
I mean, if you look at what South Korea did with esports, right? They're the ones who kind of originated the whole thing. They've made it into a huge business, and it's gone global as a result. So, I mean, some of the things that you raised about technology and the talent. Are we putting anything in place that will allow us to scout for that talent and to develop teams? What are we doing to create that ecosystem?
The thing is that with regards to the scouting and enabling of teams, at the moment it really happens mostly at the tertiary level, because unlike for other sports, we do not have representation, or rather we do not have ECAs, for example, in secondary school and junior college, secondary school and junior college, and the primary tertiary levels, and primary levels. So I think that in terms of where we can go there, I think we need to have that conversation on how we can build this, and also perhaps more importantly, how the skills for this are actually positive. In that sense, right, I think this is a good time to discuss this. Like just now, you asked a very interesting question to Amran about when we initially started talking about how long does he spend? Does it make him better at playing? It's not just playing the game. If you are spending, in fact, if a parent was to tell me my child is spending 10 hours a day on the computer playing the game, then I'll say that they're not actually training for esports. They have an addiction problem. Because when you train for esports, what you need to do is, after you play a game with an opponent, you actually need to analyze it whether you win or lose. If you win, you need to know, where did he make mistakes? Where did I do well? Where could I have improved? If you've lost the game, you need to know, why did I lose? How can I do better next round? That process of evaluating, training, and actually going through these sort of things. And also the building of other capabilities which help you at winning the game. It's not so straightforward as simply playing the game. And in that sense, right, this scientific methodology and all this are things which we are trying to develop or co-develop at the higher levels and trying to implement at universities and things of the sort. But I hope and I trust that the time is, as we continue to work on this, we'll be able to make our case to the schools and also to the parents that going into esports is not just playing more computer games, but playing in a very focused and systematic way. And that these skills acquired here can also transfer on to life skills in the future. In terms of the building of this infrastructure and the building of this type of knowledge base, that actually hits on to another point. Esports itself is not just about the gamers, not just about the athletes. It's about also the supporting roles. So for example, when Amran decides to retire from his career as a professional athlete, he could look at, for example, going into coaching teams, and potentially, especially as we set up in schools, he could be potentially a coach for school teams. Beyond that, he could be a commentator, live caster. There are a lot of other jobs around this which are not limited to being the best, simply being the top athlete. And actually, this is the same for sports. So these are areas where we would need to show and develop within Singapore.
Could this be one area where we could take an activity and a sport and really be world class at it? I mean, no, we've been trying to get into the World Cup, the real football World Cup, with little luck. But here's a chance. I mean, we've got Amran who's won regional stuff, competitions. There are opportunities here to take this and put Singapore on the global map in terms of an esports environment. And you can also back it up with all the facilities and the education and the ecosystem, develop the ecosystem.
I feel that one of the most important things for this is the opportunity to practice against people of your skill or better in a systematic way. Because if you look at it, Singapore actually, interestingly enough, did really well in esports in the past. And that was when we see at the LAN shops. And that was the place for people to spar. But at this point where we are again a victim of our success, we are a victim of there are too many choices in games. There are too many different venues where people can play. In the past, for example, when in the past people were just very focused on one or two games, and that was possible. But at the moment, our talent is actually dispersed into a lot of different games. And I think that we have the opportunity. It's just that we need to be systematic about it. Because like your example of football, an interesting thing to note is if you look at Switzerland, for example, Switzerland is about the same population as Singapore. But if you look at, for example, the football team, they are actually very successful on the world stage, or comparatively very successful. And I think that that is something which we need to learn from, and we need to find our own way. Part of the problem is, as I said just now, we have a lot of other opportunities or choices in terms of jobs in Singapore, and this is something that we need to again find our way on. In terms of this, I think that riding this wave of interest and excitement from the youth, we are able to build more. But it is as much as up to the youth and their passion and dreams in this, as it is up to Singapore Esports Association in building and creating the conditions for for winners to arise.
Okay, so what is the average sort of career for an esports athlete?
I'll say it based on the FIFA perspective. Like nowadays, I'm seeing a lot of 16-year-olds climbing up the ranks, and they are the ones dominating the scene. I guess your career can start as early as 15 or 16. And I think at your prime, you're probably at 19, 20. But it also depends on how how passionate you are, like Chong said, how much you're willing to train. Sometimes kids, they start off with that spark. They want to, pursue these esports. They want to play. They want to reach the highest level. But when they face a number of failures, like when they don't get what they want, they tend to give up easily. So it also depends on that. But I think from like an average career length for someone, I would say it's probably starts at 16 and can reach up to 30.
Okay.
Yeah.
So experience doesn't count for much. Is that what you're saying?
It does. But I think like you get a lot of experience when you are in your the more competitions you take part in. So let's say you are in your late 20s. I think that's where you have a lot of experience and how to handle, let's say, if you're nervous or when you're playing on the big stages. Back then when I was playing from my own experience, I tend to get very nervous the first few competitions I took part in, and because of that nervousness, I tend to not perform at the highest level, and I tend to kind of hate myself for it. Like I can't
So
control
how
myself.
do you relax yourself now?
I think it's all about how I, convince myself. Like after taking part in many competitions, I convince myself that this isn't the end. Even if I don't perform, there will always be another chance. I try to downplay it so that I'll play like how I do if I'm playing at home. And I feel like that's when I tend to play at the best of my abilities.
Okay. So there's a question here about how are you performing so successfully even after entering your 20s, which is kind of past the prime age for FIFA. What's the average age of the FIFA player now? Do you have any idea what it is?
I would assume its average age is 20, 21.
Around that.
Yeah.
So you're not that far away from that anyway, right? So Mark, I just want to bring the physical side of it, where you swam in competitions and won competitions, and how much of that experience can you bring to the esports environment? How much of that thinking and behavior and sort of training would apply in esports?
Actually, I feel a lot of it actually does apply to esports. Especially in your maturing years, when you hit puberty, right? A lot of the neural pathways actually do start to develop, and it's a pity. Like, and Chong did mention one of the concerns that we have here in Singapore, where it's not even accepted as a sport in the national school games, and that alone cuts away a lot of the talent, or where other students may have an opportunity to take on other sports and get recognition for it at the national school games, national colors, CCA points. They get I think that's one big thing that we need to do. Get the schools involved with esports. Understand that it's not just about the violence, the game addiction, and all the vices that are associated with esports. There are a lot of goods that can come with participating in esports. And Chong hit the nail on the head when he said that a lot of the skills that are required in esports are transferable into daily life, into working careers. I can also draw a lot of parallels to more traditional sports like swimming, right? Discipline, time management, teamwork, communication skills. These are things that athletes, esports athletes, are privileged enough to experience multiple hours a day, right, at a very young age. So when you're holding these skills at a young age, you're able to transfer that into university life, into working life. So it's not just the physical aspect where I think more athletes should participate at a younger age, but it's also the other social skills and elements that are associated with esports that I think can do a lot of good to society.
Mm. And of course, the building up of the ecosystem is quite important, because if you can see continuity past sort of actual playing career into a coaching and training and even an administrative environment. Creating tournaments requires different skills, and negotiating contracts, all those sort of things are important, right? If we can set that up as they've done in the West and in other parts of the world, wouldn't it be a good situation for Singapore to be in? I mean, as a hub in this region, to have a very sophisticated setup for esports. I mean, as you said, we were once quite good and then kind of fell off the edge. Can we bring it up again and push it through in the new world?
Yeah, I think it's possible, and I think there's a comment before about can Singapore actually be world champions? We actually do have world champions, right? Different with different genres and different age groups. I believe that we have a Pokemon world champion, and then we have other more traditional esports genres like Counter Strike and Street Fighter, where we have world beaters as well. So I think the systems are there. It's just about how prolific we can make this, right, and give the opportunities for esports people to participate. And back to the point on the different industries. Yeah, I think Singapore is well built in terms of production and broadcast to develop itself as an esports hub, to hold tournaments, to broadcast tournaments, to do all the various things in shoutcasting, production, and I think one thing that could be exciting is it could be a home for professional teams to set up base here, to spar, to contribute to Chong's vision of the playing with people of a higher or equal standard on a more consistent basis. Like, why do we send a lot of our athletes away to Australia, the UK, and the US to train, to compete? Is because they have that high level of competition on a daily basis, not only just in competition, but in a daily training environment. They're constantly sparring with them. So if we can create that kind of environment here in Singapore, the other facilitating industries like broadcasts, like the sports sciences, game analytics, they'll come into play, no doubt.
How important would prize money be in sort of convincing people to take this up seriously?
I mean, money is a very big motivator. I think the question is like how big amount of money. I think it definitely can move the needle a lot. Yeah.
So what do teams, say in the US and Korea and all, make when they win, and what is the potential here? What do they make if they win a tournament here?
I think the majors can go to a few millions of dollars, right? I think Chong, you probably are in a better position to answer this.
Let me just put it this way. Esports competitions are actually very global. If you have a very good team in Singapore, they will participate in those competitions. It's just that, of course, currently one of the biggest issues with regards to this physical competitions is that they cannot happen because of the COVID situation. For now. I mean, people think that you can play regional competitions to a certain level of fairness, but beyond that, it's difficult because you have lag, you have ping, you have distance. Yeah. So that is we still do have that limitation in terms of that. And also, not just that, perhaps one of the most important and soft, what we call it soft, but it's still critical, is that you need that. There is always that tension when the people are there face to face challenging each other. And it's not just that, it's also the community and the friendships which you develop, like, when you keep going for the highest level competitions, you're always seeing the same people, you're competing against the same people, and that engenders respect for each other. So those are the things which are lacking. And in terms of if you're talking about local competitions, of course, local competitions prize pools are smaller and things of the sort, but those are the amateur. Once you go to the professional level and also the international competitions, the official competitions run by the organizations, everyone's competing there. Yeah, and you usually have mixed teams anyway.
Okay, so what would the prize be? I mean, if Singapore were to hold an international competition, what would be an attractive prize COVID, etc., out of the picture, not in the equation. What would an attractive pot be to bring in big teams to play in Singapore.
But we've already had that. Like, for example, the majors in Singapore was a few $1 million. Not few million. The Dota majors in Singapore, and also the Free Fire World Championships was held in Singapore. Yeah. So those are,
Are the pots comparative to what you would get in the West?
I mean, that is their World Championship. So the pots
so it would be.
It is the same. I mean, again, right, do not forget that the number of competitions which have very, very large prize pools in the world are very rare. You have it for Dota, you have it for League of Legends, and you have it for Fortnite, but the rest of them are not so high. So for example, for the most recent one, which is the Free Fire World Series, that was $2 million. $2 million prize pool. And the Singapore major, if I am not wrong, yes, the prize pool was only $500,000. But the majors are like that. It is only the It is only the international, which is actually has the 20 million plus prize pool.
Okay, so for your tournament in December, right? What's at stake for the 80 countries coming in?
I think we need to see it a bit differently. It's the same as the difference between the International Olympic Games and the FIFA, and the FIFA, let's say UEFA League or the European League or the Champions League. And even within FIFA, it's the difference between the Champions League and the World Cup. The World Cup, where you represent your country, you're playing for the pride of your country, you're playing for to represent your country. This is what the year-end event is aspiring to be. In fact, right, it is because of the World Cup and because of the International Olympic Games, which actually gives value to the moneyed competitions, for example, for golf, etc. And it is the same perspective for the Global Esports Games at the year end. The Global Esports Games at the year end, you're playing for your country in your with players of your same country. Unlike for international tournaments, like for example, when you see Manchester United versus Liverpool, that's when you have mixed country teams. And this is the same analogy I would draw for the Global Esports Games at the year end.
Okay, so how much of sort of a stumbling block has COVID been to the development of esports? So,
on one hand, in terms of the official competitions, it is a huge stumbling block because a lot of people are not able to have these competitions. However, on the other side of it, in terms of the take-up rate of gaming and all that, and the acceptance and the understanding of what gaming is really about, and it's not something to be feared, that has started to increase. That is, people started to understand that it's not. It is actually something which requires skill, which requires ability, which is exciting for people to take part in. Yeah.
So, the one thing about this is you learn, right? You're constantly learning. When you get into a new game, you have to learn how the features work, etc. And even then, they tweak the game as it progresses. So you're constantly learning. Is there an opportunity to take this into aging populations and introduce it to the older generations? Because that's one of the ways of battling dementia and the like, right? To constantly keep pushing and learning. Would a veterans league, perhaps, small money maybe, but at least build that camaraderie, build that friendship, build that sense of activity with not too difficult equipment? I think it's going mobile in many ways as well. Would something like that be considered at all, or is it still a young person's endeavor?
Actually, you'll find it really interesting to see that a lot of older people are playing games. And for example, the there are even teams of older people playing games, and they are more famous, for example, in Europe and things of the sort. But it is already happening. And beyond that, I would say also that in my generation before mine, which we're starting to get older already, but a lot of our friends and colleagues are still playing games now. We started playing games and we're still playing games now. Yeah. So I think that this is something really happening. And I would just like to just say at this point that you not necessarily need to have the competitions, because people are already on the grassroots level running their own games and things of the sort. And this is the same for sports. At that age, it is more for playing with your friends or playing against your friends. And it is like, for example, well, for Chinese, for our current older generation, they're playing mahjong and things of the sort. And it's that same thing, which is already starting to happen. It's starting to become part of the community. And actually, this is accelerated beyond our wildest imaginations because of COVID.
With regards to esports, it's not just traditional kind of esports that we know from the consoles and the PCs and the mobile games, right? We also see a new genre emerging because of COVID-19 called active esports, where we have people competing using their bicycles on treadmills on the virtual platform, like through Zwift. I think with our partners at Refract at Global Esports Federation, they're developing a fighting game, with the World Taekwondo Federation called Free Striker, and you don't have to physically hit anyone in Taekwondo like what we traditionally know as Taekwondo, but through the movements and skills they can identify different moves, and you can compete with someone in a virtual platform without getting hit in a safe environment. And what that does is it breaks down barriers. Like I could be competing with someone of a different weight class, different gender, a different age group. And I think that would be something which the older generation of people would be keen on embarking on, being able to participate in sports like that without getting hurt, without getting any trauma, introducing them to new skills. That kind of feedback is something that's important. And that has emerged from the global pandemic in COVID-19.
Is that something that could be sort of better established as via an organization or a practice? Instead of, at the moment, it sounds like if you chance upon it, you can get into it and try it and do it. But if there were certain sort of groups or structures which allowed people to realize that they could access it, they could, participate in it, wouldn't that be a bit more effective in terms of spreading the information about it?
Yeah, I think one thing that we saw last year and that was unprecedented was the president of the IOC, Thomas Park, actually telling international federations 4 times that they need to embark on their esports strategies. And I think when you see that happening, it's a message to all the international federations that, pandemics can happen and they need to keep their membership base active and engaged through virtual platforms, through social distancing. And you'll see more and more of these active esports games coming up. That proliferation and accessibility of these games is going to be the start. Then when you have accessibility, when costs come down, then people would start to compete. Participation first, then competition. And I think you have various interest groups happening. And as Chong has said, in the community, things are already happening with different age groups, with different groups of people of different interests. And it's just about how do we see more and more of these genres happening and more widely done.
Is this something you might bring up as an NMP?
I raised it this year in the budget debates, and MCCY, they responded and they said, yeah, something that they're looking at. I think Chong and I were both involved in various panels with MCCY to talk about how we can enable esports as that vehicle for social good.
Amran, I just wanted to check with you. there's a lot of good. You won a lot of competitions. Would you consider one of those as your highest point, most memorable point as an esports athlete? Winning a tournament?
You mean like a particular moment?
Yeah.
I would say winning the first EA Champions Cup, because like when I was playing in the FIFA Online, like that was always the end goal. Like that was like the highest prize, and I took part in it previously twice, and I fell short. Yeah, I came so close but didn't win it, and it was always the end goal. It was the most prestigious tournament, and then to finally win it in the manner we did, how we were gonna get eliminated in the semifinals, and then I was the last player, and I managed to win the two other competitors from China and bring Singapore to the finals. It was, I think there's no words to describe the feeling. You just have to experience it.
That's a lot of the positives. That's fantastic. And China is a big player in all of this, right? They're going to be leading a lot of the push. Um, what are the negatives to it? I mean, there's all this online harassment that you read about and all those sort of issues. Have you had any sort of negative interactions during your esports activities?
For me, in terms of interactions, it has always been positive. People from around the world. When I went to Vietnam, Thailand, there were a lot of people that you didn't know who were following you, who were supporting you.
We've got
Like-
one in the chat today who's is a fan of yours. Yeah, sorry. Yeah.
Yeah, like you gain so much positive energy from people from around the world. That's the best part. I think the only negative aspect I would say is you spend more time gaming, right? And then maybe you might have to sacrifice a bit of your social life. Yeah,
Okay.
maybe hanging out with friends and all. If there's like a big tournament coming up and you really need to put in the hours and train, I guess you have to forego your your leisure time with friends and.
So, do you play field football?
I used to when I was young. I think that's how the love for football translated into video games. I think that's why I was so inclined on FIFA rather than other genre of games.
Okay. So, if you continue playing on the field, would you have developed a bit more skill and knowledge and tactical notes to bring to your FIFA game?
I would believe so, but I I used to watch a lot of football because I don't think I'm good enough to play real life football. I never thought I was good at it, so I tend to watch a lot, and then I try to learn from real life football and apply it in the game, and it has really helped a lot because the understanding of the game helps you to elevate your performance.
Okay. So it's this balance we were talking about earlier as well, isn't it? How the virtual can help your real world experiences. That's probably a bigger message that needs to go out, that it's not, you're not just on the screen and you're not just doing that for that purpose, but you're also developing a lot of capability and taking on knowledge which you could take to the real world and apply in other aspects of your life.
I think that there are many things that esports can do. I think we're working with the United Nations at GEF to help them with four of their sustainability goals in youth, in gender equality, in sustainability, environment, and elderly. And I think esports can really be that vehicle to actually do all these various things. To the broader Singapore context, right? I think we can use esports to reach out to the youth, to help them, prepare them to be future ready, because a lot of the jobs out there are going to be in the digital space. It's also an opportunity for Singapore to seize, because it's a emerging industry to provide jobs for Singaporeans, and I think it will really help trade in the economy. So I think there are many things that esports can do.
Perhaps to conclude, I'd just like to say that the growth of esports is not going to be just any single government organization or any single person or team which can bring about in Singapore. It is actually a collaborative effort, and I really hope to see some of my viewers and some of the people who are looking at this and thinking, should I get involved in this or not, to consider strongly whether to be involved. Because it's not just going to be the game, as I said. It's also looking at people who are willing to come in and spearhead the transformation of Singapore, and also to come in to enter this new industry. I think if you think about payoffs at this point, perhaps at the current moment, your payoffs for this is potentially lower in terms of pay, in terms of other things. But I think that it'll be very rewarding for all of the entrepreneurs, for all of the the people who are willing to enter and break the ground for others here. And this is what I really hope to see, to have more people coming into this to grow and develop esports in Singapore as a new industry, and also as a new way for earning, which I believe would be something which Singapore is very well positioned to provide for the region and, in fact, for the world.
Esports is growing, and I want it to be, reach greater heights in Singapore. And after listening to Chong and Mark, I think it's in good hands. I believe that esports will continue to grow with them spearheading it. And as an esports athlete, that's what we want. That's what we love to see.
So would you continue your esports journey if Chong and Mark continue to push things along?
Definitely. I mean, esports is like a part of my life now. It's very, I would continue to be part of esports, even when I'm not a player. Like Chong said, there's other avenues to explore, like coach or caster or something. I'll definitely be in the esports scene because this is what we love to do.
Gentlemen, thank you for all your inputs on esports. Your insights have been quite valuable in terms of trying to get a better understanding of what it means to be an athlete, an esports administrator. All of you have interesting things coming up. Amran, all the best for your competition in August. Hopefully you can get there. You're allowed to travel by then. And Chong and Mark, for your December endeavor as well, all the best on that. Hope that helps to plant a big flag for Singapore and for esports, and it continues to build on that and grow. Thanks again, Amran, Chong and Mark, for joining this session.